Hi everyone, Bart from HVN back again to make another video. I know I've been away from for a while. We've had training start up again in the Netherlands, and then we've had training shut down again because of an uptick in infection rate. So we're back at home, training at home, just like a couple months ago. And just like a couple months ago, I have more time on my hands to make these videos for you. And the video that I wanted to start off with is a gear review, another gear review, and I wanted to go a little more in depth on light gloves this time. And with light gloves, I mean gloves that are suitable for roughly two things. One, for sparring or training with very light, low impact weapons, such as small sword or rapier, or that are suitable for light drilling with heavier weapons, such as longsword. A lot of people prefer to wear some sort of light glove that mitigates the impact of minor taps and scrapes that could occur accidentally during a drill with longsword. I personally also prefer not to wear not to be bare-handed entirely when doing longsword drills, and light gloves are what I would use for that. They are just one step below things like red dragons, e.g. these, or red dragons, which I would categorize as medium gloves, things that would be suitable for slightly harder hitting weapons such as saber or side sword, one-handed weapons that usually give some knuckle protection in the hilt itself, like a knuckle guard, but do hit somewhat more impactfully than a rapier would. Heavier gloves is what I would categorize as stuff that is suitable for like full-on longsword sparring. Things like spec heavies or sparring gloves or pro gauntlets, things that actually provide good impact against full intensity speed hits. So I went through a number of different pairs looking for a good light glove for my personal use as I started to train and spar with lighter weapons such as rapier a little bit more. And I wanted to show you a couple of different variations and my short reviews on them to help you find one that suits you. So the first pair that I bought was one that I got alongside my first rapier. That was from the producer Dynamo Fencing in Ukraine. They go under the name HF Armory now, but they produce more or less the same items. And it is this. So this is what you would call your basic general use leather HEMA glove. There are many variations of this, but they all more or less fit the same bill. Just a light leather outer coating with some very light padding underneath. This one has sort of an anti-abrasive layer on both the index finger and the palm. Some of them only have it on the palm. The fact that they also put it on the index finger at HF Armories is what I really like, although you can see that it's worn down over use. But it doesn't really matter that much because there's just the regular glove underneath still, so this is an added bonus. This is a very common glove to use for both light weapons and light drilling with longsword. Almost any HEMAist, even if you're purely a longsworder, many will have at least one pair of these somewhere in their kit bag or in their kit cabinet somewhere lying around. You can also use these for head-only sparring if you want to. Any light longsword sparring that doesn't involve full intensity. This is what people often use these for. Like I said, these were my first rapier gloves that I used, and they're okay, they're fine, but they have two big drawbacks. One is that the padding is very minimal. It doesn't have any hardened areas on places where harder hits would land, and the padding itself is very thin and light. If you were to have a very protective hilt on your weapon, such as a cup hilt rapier, for instance, this would be fine. For small sword, of course, this would also be fine because small swords don't hit very hard at all. But for anything else, like a more open-hilted rapier or something approximating a more like cutty weapon like a side sword, I really wouldn't use this at all. It's just too light for that. Drawback number 2 is that even though I'm pretty sure this is the proper fit for me, my fingers fit these fully, I think it's because it's all leather, I'm not sure. They are a little bit tight. Like I have to actively use some measure of force to keep them closed around the weapon, and that causes fatigue over time. No matter how much force I have to use, it still like fatigues the arm over time, because that goes against the idea that I have that if you are not actively engaging the weapon in a cut or thrust or whatever, you need to have a relaxed grip. You can't have a relaxed grip if you have to actively keep your hand closed. So this is actually the reason why at first I thought that, I don't know, I just wasn't used to using a one-handed weapon like a rapier because my arm was getting so tired all the time. I'm guessing it's down to this. Just the fact that I have to like exert energy to use this glove. So I don't really like these very much. The one plus that they have is that they're very cheap. You can usually get a pair of these for under 30 euros. So if you just want to get into like light drilling with longsword, or you just want to try sparring with a rapier out for the first time, you can get a pair of these, and you wouldn't really be wasting a lot of money, even if you didn't like them after. What I got after this was also from HF Armory, Dynamo Fencing, which is called HF Armory now, which is what they call the light HEMA gloves, I believe. It's these things. These are, I think they're inspired by motorcycle gloves, and also, as you can probably sort of tell, also inspired by the Gajadoni style gloves that Gajadoni Fencing made for HEMA. They make them with a longer cuff. HF Armory makes them with both a short cuff like this and with a longer cuff that comes almost up to the elbow. So if you don't like makers borrowing from each other in terms of like design, this might be a drawback, but personally I feel that it's not a perfect one-to-one copy, and HF Armory and Gajadoni, they have a very different clientele. Gajadoni Fencing caters more to a bespoke high-end customer who likes their stuff being made to measure and being really high quality and is willing to pay a little bit more for that. And HF Armory caters more to a customer that just wants something functional for not too much money, i.e. me. So I don't think it's that big of a deal, especially now that Gajadoni isn't making HEMA gear anymore. Now that I think about it, I'm not sure that it has a one-to-one relationship. That Gajadoni is now out of business and HF Armory is not, but let's not discuss that any further. So the gloves themselves, I really like these. I've been using them for a couple of years now. I've been using them in sparring, drilling with longsword, and tournaments for rapier. And the mobility in these, as opposed to these lighter leather gloves, is amazing. They, as you can tell, they strap on relatively easily. They are a very snug fit, but they still have great mobility. I could just relax my hand, I'd still make a fist. And that's what I want with a light glove. To have a relaxed grip and still be able to hold on to the sword and not have to use energy for that. So mobility, awesome. Protectiveness is quite a few levels higher than the lighter leather gloves, because that they have hardened plates in critical areas along the knuckles here, and also separate plates that I think are made of carbon fiber or some other plastic, I'm not quite sure, over the knuckles of the fingers and the thumb, and also some extra padding on the back of the hand, near the wrist, and on the wrist itself. So these are a lot more protective than you would think at first sight. I have actually, in moments of carelessness and delirium, used them for saber sparring without ill effect. They were fine. I even got hit in the hand once or twice, and it was not a big deal. I would not recommend doing that. I'm an idiot. I don't use these for heavier weapons than rapier, but I really hate my red dragons sometimes, and these feel better. So yeah, these are very good. They're a bit more expensive than the lighter gloves, but you do get a lot more bang for your buck. I think these are about 50, 60 euros-ish, but you do have to get them from the Ukraine, so you might have to spend a little bit more depending on where you are in terms of taxes and shipping and all that. They're starting to give now after a couple of years of use. You might be able to see this, but the back of the hand plate has had some of its plastic knocked off. The thumb started to wear out here, so I had to put some tape over it. The stitching is starting to come loose in one or two places, but this is after several years of use, and they're still perfectly usable as is. I'm just not using them anymore now because I switched over to my current pair of gloves, which is these. These are, I'm not sure what they're called officially, but I call them the White Company gloves because I originally saw the guys from the White Company, which is a Russian club, use them at Swordfish for various weapons. And somewhere in 2019, I saw Sergey of the White Company advertise these. He apparently makes them himself. And I immediately jumped on them because I saw these as a good replacement for my Red Dragons. So I originally bought them specifically for use with Saber. So why am I discussing them in a video on light gloves instead of on a video on medium gloves? Well, because after I bought them for Saber, I noticed that mobility is so good overall, and its size, the profile is so low that it's actually very easy to use it in a rapier and not actually notice that it is a heavier glove. So they fit so well, and the mobility is so good that I'm just using them for almost any weapon besides longsword right now. Particularly because, as you can tell, my rapier preferences go towards the more open-hilted side of the spectrum. I'm not a huge fan of cup hilts for various reasons, aesthetics mostly. I like more earlier style rapiers with a very open hilt, so getting hit in the fingers is a real risk when I spar in these. So having a little bit more protection for me is a very good thing. Usually that means sacrificing some mobility. If I were to wear my Red Dragon glove in these, it would have a very clunky feel to it, and I wouldn't be able to move my wrist as much. I wouldn't be able to switch grips as well. And I just hate Red Dragons overall for various reasons. So I would never do that. But these, I don't feel like I'm sacrificing any mobility at all in favor of the higher protectiveness. I love these things. They're a bit more expensive than either of the previous gloves. I paid somewhere around 100 euros for the pair, I think. And that's, on top of that, you would of course have to pay some shipping and taxes, depending on where you are again. But they are very much worth it. They're all leather. And you would think, is that really protective enough? And yeah, I think it is. It comes with a wax-hardened leather bit over the knuckles and over the back of the hand, which is quite sturdy. And it's held together with more flexible leather strips and rivets under a leather glove. So it's an all-leather construction. And I have taken some pretty hard blows in these with various weapons. I don't just use them for saber and rapier, which have a more extensive hilt to protect the hand. I would probably say that I would feel comfortable using these gloves for any weapon that has some sort of extra knuckle protection or is light enough to not really fear an actual cut with. So, for example, I use these with my messer because it has a knuckle guard. And even though this is like a pretty sturdy blade, it hits pretty hard, and I would assume my partner to have a similar blade, I would feel comfortable enough to use this in sparring at least. Tournament, I'm not 100% sure. You might want to go for a little heavier glove if you go for like a full speed tournament. But for sparring, these are just fine. I wouldn't feel like I was being an idiot wearing those gloves, using them with small sword, rapier, side sword, messer if you have a more complex hilt, saber. Did I already say saber? Oh, never mind. Anything up to open-hilted arming sword or long sword. I would recommend against using those with those gloves. But yeah, I'm really happy with them. The only downside I think with these is that if the inner glove ever gives out due to wear and tear or damage, it would be a little trickier to replace it and keep the outer shell because it's stitched and riveted in. So if at any time these really break, I'm not sure what I'd do. The upside is that Sergey Volkov, I think, actually sells these not just per pair, but also per single glove. So if one of the gloves breaks, you can just buy one glove instead of having to buy a whole new pair. So that's nice. So, that's more or less all I have to say. I've been rambling for almost 17 minutes now. I just wanted to give one more honorable mention in the light glove category, and that is to these. These are Thok 350 Newton undergloves. And I bought these because they fulfill a rather unique role in HEMA, as in they're 350 Newton gloves meant to go under sparring gloves. That's what I use them for now. I don't know of any other gloves that are actually 350 Newton rated, meant for HEMA and meant to go under sparring gloves. So I won't talk anymore about that. I actually have another video planned about these gloves specifically and the role they fulfill in my longsword sparring. But I just want to say that these are actually sturdy enough to be used separately, for small sword at least. And also, if you have a cup hilt rapier, I wouldn't feel weird using this either. An open hilted rapier, it just doesn't have the padding necessary to protect against cuts to the fingers. So I wouldn't use that, but these are also quite interesting and nice gloves that I will devote a separate video to eventually. Hopefully soon. So, just to sum up, simple, light leather gloves. They're cheap, but you get what you pay for. They're a good starter set. The HF Armory HEMA gloves, I really like these. They are very much a step up from simple leather gloves. They are protect well. You could even use them for a little heavier hitting weapons, maybe even up to side sword, but particularly for rapier, these are very good. And then finally, the White Company gloves by Sergey Volkov. These are amazing. They're a little bit more expensive, but they protect very well against hits from almost any non-longsword weapon, especially if you have a complex hilt around them. Very much recommend these. You can not get these on any website. You just have to message Sergey Volkov on Facebook. I think that's the only way to find them so far. So, I hope this was a useful video. It's a bit longer than I usually do, but I have a whole bunch of gear that I just reviewed in one video because I want to get it out there. Hope to see you guys all again soon, and have a good day.